Welcome to the Blissful Life, a podcast where we awaken the wisdom of self and explore the lessons, the rituals, and the pathways to inner bliss. I'm your host, Regina Lawless, former corporate executive turned author and spiritual teacher. And I'm on a mission, y'all, to help people connect to and express their divine self so they can make their unique impact on the world. If you've been feeling like there is more to life than the hustle and grind, then you found your tribe. It's time to breathe and relax into the blissful life. Hello and welcome back to the Blissful Life. I am so excited for my guest today. I have joining me here Cassandra Juniphant, and I am so excited for you all to meet her. Cassandra is a wife, mother, and the founder of Ori Ara, a self-care company dedicated to empowering modern women with traditional wellness practices, which is my jam. She's a former HR executive, and Cassandra's journey began over a decade ago when she transformed her health through bodybuilding and discovering the profound connection between self-care, professional success, and spirituality.
Yeah.
She became a certified trainer, a yogi, a gym owner, and student of nutrition and martial arts. So y'all can see why I'm so impressed by her. Today, she uses her expertise to help others elevate their wellness or their well-being and make self-care an integral part of everyday life. Welcome to the show, Cassandra.
Yes, thank you so much for having me, and congratulations on the show.
Thank you. Thank you. It's been a long time coming. And, as we were talking a little bit pre-show, I think this is the show that I always wanted to make, but wasn't courageous yet enough to step fully into it and into this spiritual lane.
Yeah.
And I'm glad I'm here. I'm I'm out the spiritual closet, so to speak.
Yes. Me too. Same. I feel you on that. I definitely feel you on that.
Yeah, and I think that's why we vibed so much.
Yeah.
For the audience listening or watching, we met through LinkedIn. So
Yeah.
this is like the best thing that happens with social media is you get to
Yes.
connect with people you otherwise wouldn't. And I remember that first meeting, I was like, "Oh my gosh, like
Yeah.
this lady's incredible. Like I'm now obsessed. I hope that's not creepy." It's like I just want to get to know you more. And
Yeah.
so I'm so glad that fate brought us together.
No, 100%. I remember, I think LinkedIn sent me one of those, hey, you like a recommendation. You should know this person. And I don't think I ever really pay attention to those. For some reason with you, I did. I go to your profile. I'm like, oh my gosh. And I think I message you and it's like, can I be you one day? Or like, you've got my dream career or something. Like, I just remember thinking, same, like, oh my gosh, who is this woman who lives in the Bay?
Yes.
And so I think I sent you a message. And you're like, let's do coffee. And I'm like, yes, let's do coffee. And so, yeah, we had our virtual coffee, I guess, our virtual meeting. And that was, yeah, just so many synergies and so much
Yes.
in kind. So I'm like, the LinkedIn algorithm must be on point,
Some of the times it does what it's supposed to do. The
Yeah,
algorithms.
right.
Well, you mentioned synergy, and I think that is a great segue into where I wanted to start the conversation because one of our synergies is that we both worked in HR.
Yes.
And so when you said that, I was like, come on,
Yeah.
universe, stop
Yeah.
playing around. Like And looking through your LinkedIn profile, you can see that you have not only you have such broad and deep experience, especially in the HR space. Like it looks like you've had every job
Yeah.
within the HR function, which similarly I dibbled and dabbled across HR. HR brought me many lessons. So I'm curious for you, what is one lasting lesson you take from your HR career?
Goodness gracious, that's a big question. But I got started in learning and development. So
Mm.
I used to work in the banking industry, like before the whole bubble burst and everything back in 2008. I worked for a bank or more specifically, a mortgage loan company. And one day, the bigwig from, the corporate office came down to our little branch and, he made his rounds around. What do you want to do with your career? Where do you see yourself in 5 years? That conversation. So when he sat down and talked to me, he would ask the question. And I said, I'm really good at what I do. I'm so good at what I do. I think I should teach other people how to do it. And he said, bet. And so it just so happened that the company was preparing to do a formal sale. We were sales associates or account executives was the title, but they were just now beginning to brainstorm ideas on a sales training program, and they were going to start looking for people. So I was one of the first people that they tapped when it was ready to go, and it ended up being me and four of my counterparts across the West Coast that came together, and we created from the ground up a week long sales training program.
Wow.
And we flew back and forth. Our other office was in Lake Oswego, Oregon. And so I would fly from the Bay back and forth between Oregon and the Bay for a couple of years, just facilitating these workshops, these week long workshops. And,
Wow.
um, and we were doing that for a while when one day, um, I forget how the conversation came up, but we basically realized that the people in the training program probably weren't the best candidates. And we came up with this saying, which is a horrible saying, but you'll understand. The saying was, you can't put a donkey in a horse race. And it was that we had great horse race, like thoroughbred training. The training program we put
Yeah.
together was fantastic, but we were hiring the wrong people. And so they said, Cassandra, go work on recruiting next. And I said, okay. And so
Oh
I
my
ended up
gosh.
developing from the ground up a recruiting program that was feeding into these week long workshops. And so I was on this
Mm.
very high volume desk of recruiting for people to start every 2 weeks. We had a training being scheduled that I had to fill
Ooh,
up.
I remember
And
those days.
it was
Yeah.
high volume. We had
Mm.
so much going on during that time, but that's how I got into HR. That's how I got into it.
Wow. So many cool parts to that story. One, kudos to you for being that young or early in your career to say, listen,
Yeah,
I'm excellent at
yeah,
what I do. and, and I think I should train other people. So I love that you had just the chutzpah, for lack
yeah,
of a
yeah,
better word, to say to already know your skills and your value, and by being able to vocalize that, that puts you in position to
yeah,
grow. And then that of course led to recruiting and this whole other part of HR. And that's what I think is really cool about, or one of the things I loved about HR. And I'd love to get your thoughts on something that you take away from the profession. But one of the things, I think I was fortunate to be in HR because you get to have a different vantage point than other
oh,
people.
for
You
sure.
you get to see, like that saying, how the sausage is made. Like
Yeah,
you
yeah,
get to see what's going on in all these different departments, and just even from a macro level of people, you got a chance to train the people, and then, oh, okay, there's something in the system that's broken. We need to actually think about who we're recruiting differently. Let me go ahead and work in that. And then I know you worked your way all the way up to an HR executive role. So
yeah,
all of that time you spent in HR, what's something that sticks with you today?
yeah. Um, People are people.
Mm.
That's a really simple way of saying that. I learned really quickly that I cannot only acknowledge the employee side of a person when I'm talking to them. And that goes from everyone. That goes from the entry level, you know, new hire positions all the way up to the owners and the CEOs and the CFOs that I reported to. People are people, and as soon as you can forget about a title in either direction, the clearer and the clearer your communication can be, and then the results that you're after manifest. As soon as I stopped talking, so besides the banking job that I mentioned, I mostly worked for startups, small companies, exiting startups. And I was like, oh my gosh, I work for the owner. Oh my gosh, I report to this, it was all of this. And as soon as I let that go, which happened pretty quickly, thank goodness, but as soon as I let that go, like, this is just a dude.
This is
You're
just a
just a
dude.
he's just a dude, and he had, and I'll just say they have, the same challenges that everybody has, challenges with
Yes.
raising children, with their partners, with their aging parents, with their
Yes.
health, with just all sorts of things. And when that clicked for me, I was like, oh, I know how to talk to you now. I
Mm.
didn't get that imposter syndrome for the most part. I mean, there was
Yes.
still some of that, but I was able to see the human. And then, in doing employee relations and working with frontline managers, middle managers, or employees, and being able to cut through the the title, the bureaucracy that comes along with being in corporate, and being able
Yes.
to truly see somebody, we were able
Mm.
to get to the point and really uncover what needed to be uncovered, so we can have the uncomfortable conversation that needed to be had, so we can get to the bottom of it. And I ended up being coined the queen of uncomfortable conversations, because
Love it.
somebody had to do it, and I was in HR and it was me, but I was able to, do so because I was talking to a human being, not an employee that
Mhm.
was in trouble for whatever, or a manager that was in trouble for whatever. I was talking to a woman or to a man, and
Yes.
that facilitated everything that needed to be facilitated.
Oh, I resonate with that so much
Yeah.
because I felt like I was the unorthodox HR person in the sense that I too saw that these are just people with
Yeah.
various problems. But at the end of the day, I would always say as an HR person, no one wants to come to work and underperform. Like,
Thank you.
right? Like no one like that. No one sets out to get up and like, I'm gonna suck at my job today. No,
Right.
everyone wants to be there to do the right thing. I find what gets in the way is people don't have the right guidance or support, or somewhere along the way there was miscommunication. A lot of that falls on the manager, or sometimes people are in the wrong roles. But approaching it like that helped me to have empathy and
Yeah.
compassion for
Yeah.
people. And I think it sounds like similar to you, people then would come to me because like, oh, well, you're not like the regular HR person who's just going
Yeah.
to tell me the rules and like try to
Yeah.
police me. And
Yep.
I'm like, if you want the police, I'm not the HR person for you, because
Exactly.
yes, I have the responsibility of the company, but first and foremost, before we even get to what the guidelines or the policy, I want to connect on a person to person and understand what's really going on.
Yeah.
So I love that. I'm sure you were a very popular HR person with
I like to think so.
yes,
I like to
yes.
think so. Yeah, no, I really enjoyed, and I learned a lot
Mhm.
about people, and I learned a lot about myself. And these are lessons that I definitely carry forward with me today, in everything that I do. It's translatable, it's transferable to this life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, it is. I think, yeah, HR is such a great training ground for
It is.
for understanding people,
It
for sure,
is. It
for
is.
sure. Because you see a little bit of everything. Like every HR professional I know, we could write a tell-all, and I always say we would change the names to protect the innocent and the guilty, because there's definitely some guilty parties involved.
100%.
So,
100%.
but yeah. So, aside from your HR career, which is impressive in its own right, you I learned so many other things about you, that you were a professional bodybuilder,
Yeah. Yeah.
which I'm
While in
like,
HR.
while in HR. So that's the thing that I wanted to make sure I called out for the audience, because, like, I'm sorry, sis wasn't just HRing at the
Yeah.
highest levels.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
also were a mom. You
Yeah.
also were a professional bodybuilder, and
Yeah.
you owned your own gym. You were
Yeah.
certified trainer,
Yeah.
you were a yogi, like you were doing all the things.
Yeah.
And it was interesting to me that you said that this fitness journey started around the same time as your spiritual journey.
Yeah.
And it made me wonder how these two paths complemented each other, or was there any overlap or relation between kind of how you started down the fitness path and the awakening of your spiritual sense?
Yeah. I mean, I cannot separate the two. They're 100% combined. And it really just is my lens on life at this point. But to answer your question, so yeah, I, like a lot of women, just struggled to lose the baby weight. And so I stumbled
Mhm.
across bodybuilding.com. And when I saw the website and the women on there, I was like, wait a minute, what is this? How are women muscular? Women work out like this? Like I didn't know. And so then I did a Google search and I found a coach that was in like 10 within 10 miles of where I was. And the next closest coach was like over 50 miles away. And I thought, this has got to be a sign. It's
Mhm.
definitely a sign. I've got to sign up. Didn't know what I was doing. I was broke. I really shouldn't have done it. I was going, about to be going through a divorce, shortly thereafter. But everything in my body was calling out to say, we have to try this. And so I did. I signed up and I ended up competing for 5 years. And then, yeah, I went pro in 2016. But on that journey, I guess the backstory to that, to your point, is my spiritual journey started around the same time, where I was married to a minister for 7 years. The father of my children is a minister. And I
Wow.
left the church because I was really struggling with being in that role as a minister's wife in the church, from someone who grew up, and I actually even grew up in Christian private school, but I was allowed, to be a student of religion, which I really
Mhm.
enjoyed. I liked having questions. I liked, yeah, I liked having questions and exploring new things. But as a minister's wife, I wasn't allowed to have questions. I was only allowed to have answers. And that just didn't really work for me. And so I left the church and then my marriage. This is all around the same time. And so
Mm.
I remember one day getting ready for a bodybuilding show in the gym, and I was dying through that workout because in peak week, the week before you hit the stage, you are intentionally dehydrating your body so your
Oh,
muscles
God.
pop more.
Oh, that's right. That's why we see the veins and things in the
And let me
okay.
just say, for people who are worried about health, like, you dehydrate through drinking more water. You're not cutting back on water.
Mm.
So that's something,
Mm.
you're like literally flushing the excess water by drinking more water. But you're
Ah.
intentionally dehydrating your body. You're not really eating carbs. I was just miserable and trying to get through this workout, questioning whether or not I was going to make it to the stage, when I heard Source drop in and say really, really clearly that this is what we came for. And in that moment, I got a download that was and has been crystal clear ever since. You want to know the whole meaning of life, the point of life? It's to have a body. And that's what I
Yes.
understood. And so as I was dying through that workout, everything that I was feeling was a glorious feeling to spirit, because it was an experience, right? Otherwise, in the
Mhm.
non-physical, you don't experience ache in your muscles or being short of breath or sweat on your body. And so that was all very beautiful. And from that moment on, my life changed. And while other people were like, oh my gosh, your abs. Oh my gosh, your trophies. I was like, that's great. Thank you for noticing. But something much more magical is happening inside of me. And what you guys see on the outside is just an overflow from the mental and
Mhm.
emotional and spiritual transformation that I'm making on the inside. And at this time, I couldn't help but draw a causation, not, I always say, not just correlation, but causation to my
Mm.
career going like this. That, that the promotions and the raises and the acknowledgement that I was getting was 100% relevant to the fact that I was taking care of myself in the, like I'd never had before. And I
Yeah.
was able to show up to myself first, and then, my organization and all the people that needed me. And that definitely came across. And so um from that moment on, I was just like, well, I'm in love with having a body, and I want to teach every woman, who's willing to listen to me, how to fall in love with her body too. But that was at the root of that, to get back to your point, what's at the heart of that is understanding that this is how spirit chose to experience the world through my body, and for everyone listening, through your individual body. It's the
Yes.
individuality, it's the differences, it's all of the things that we don't like about ourselves is the reason spirit chose your body to have that unique experience, while spirit is also having a unique experience in everyone else's bodies. And there's just
Mm.
so much power and beauty behind that. And in understanding that, I'm like, well, this is all I have to, like, this is all I can do now. You took it out of my hands. I don't want to talk about anything else anymore. What am I supposed to do? This is all I want to do. This is all I want to talk about. So this has been the last 12, almost 13 years of my life.
Oh my gosh. You just filled me. Like I'm over here, like my spirit is like, you said so
Yeah.
much that I want to unpack here for
Yeah.
the audience in case they didn't catch it. I want to come back to in a second how this correlated to, or the causation, because you very distinctly said
Yeah.
causation of your career, because I
Yeah.
think that's important for a lot of women who are struggling and trying to juggle the things. So I'll come back to that piece. But one of the earlier parts of your answer really touched my heart when you said, as a minister's wife, as a first lady, that's how growing up in the Baptist tradition, that's
Yep.
how we refer to the pastor's wife, the first lady of the church. You weren't allowed to have questions
No.
because you had to have the answers.
Yes.
And there is something so poignant about that, because I think that is a representation of how so many of us, in our desire to be certain in our
Mm.
faith,
Hmm.
that we sometimes miss the bigger picture.
Yes.
And that's what I've come to realize. What I love about broadening my aperture into spirituality, or understanding that spirit is the source, spirit is all that is, spirit is all of us, through us and everything. Um, in that comes way more questions than answers. And that's what I look, because I'm insatiable with like
Yes.
reading, and if I'm interested in something, so I'm like a spiritual junkie now, because
Yes.
it's fascinating. Like it's so immensely complicated and fascinating. And to your point, just understanding that we are all so unique and beautiful and different, and that's literally the point.
That's the whole point.
That is literally the point of us
Yeah.
coming down here to have this experience in this
Yes.
3D
Yes.
realm, in these physical bodies, so that we can have this experience of taste, touch, feel,
Yes.
this beautiful sensory experience, so that we may know our souls more deeply.
Yes.
And in religion, and this is not a knock on religion, because if you like, more power to you, that's part of why we have free will. Believe what you believe. But I love how you called out, and I would offer that to other people. Believe what you believe, but leave space for the unknown. Leave space to expand your awareness, because that really is why we are here.
It is. It is. And I
So,
always like to remind people, for the Christians specifically, is that Jesus didn't have a Bible.
no,
And so
no.
how was he recognized, right? It was how he navigated the world. And so when it comes to religion and religious doctrine, we're so heavily anchored and
Yes.
focused on just the Bible. And it's a sacred text. I'm not here to, to debate that. Like,
Yeah.
clearly
Right.
it is. But I just want to remind you, or remind those who are, in order to leave space, right? It's like, well,
Yeah.
then, how was Jesus led? If we are moving forward in that Christ consciousness,
Yeah.
which is the root of Christianity, how was he led? It wasn't through dogma. It was through that expansiveness. It was through that openness. And so, yeah, I just wanted to double tap on that real quick.
No, and who better, who better than someone who knows, who was steeped in the Christian faith and
Yeah,
tradition. So thank you for that. Thank you
yeah,
for that. Wow. So you go through this spiritual awakening, you have this download, you
yeah.
realize the purpose of having these beautiful bodies, and your career continues to excel. What advice would you have for women who are struggling to marry the two. And I'll
Yeah.
give you a brief example of my background and why I know how much of an issue this is, and I'm sure you do too. But as I was climbing up the executive ranks, I faced more and more pressure to deprioritize myself
Yeah.
because there are so many demands as a leader to be responsive and answer the emails and work weekends. And before you know it, you're exhausted and you still have to make dinner and you still have to wash clothes and you still got to run these kids to their practice and
Yeah.
the things. So, how did you find the time to still lean into your health, and how would you almost shift the mindset for other women who keep saying, no, 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 I don't have time for myself. I don't have time to worry about my health.
Yeah. There's so much there. I think the first piece is understanding. I was going to say understanding what leadership is, but I don't even know if I want to head down that path. But I'll just say really quickly that, like, I really do want to ask women to give thought to what is leadership? What does that mean to you? And out of the people that you admire, and this was the case for me, especially the women in my life that were the mentors, the women that took me under the wing and was like, hey, I want to show you how to be a woman in corporate. Would you trade places with them? Was their health and well-being, and if you are in a position that you have the good fortune to talk to them, I would ask. And that's a huge thing that I share with all of my little sisters who are out there looking for mentoring. It's like, when you choose your mentor, also make sure you are asking her, in addition about networking and climbing the corporate ladder, ask her about her health and her well-being, ask her about her family life, ask her if she would do anything
Yes.
differently, because I guarantee you she'll tell you some truths that I want you to understand, or are as important as just climbing the corporate ladder. So that's the first thing, though, is
Hmm.
just giving some thought to what does leadership look like to you, and what kind of leader do you want to be? You do have an option. You
Yes.
do get to have a choice. And then when you decide that, another thing that I would say before getting into like the tactical health and wellness things is to manage up. And I
Mm,
think that's something that we talk a lot about,
it's
right? But
key.
like, when you are especially new to your role and your manager doesn't know you, your CFO sees the C-suite doesn't know who you are and what it takes to make you thrive, that's an opportunity for you to share your values, share what's important to you, and for you to manage up and communicate, what it took for you to get to where you are today. And I don't
Yes.
mean, like just in terms of the schooling and in terms of the additional certifications. I'm talking about, my health and well-being is a part of what landed me here. If you want to know what makes me tick, if you want to know how to get more out of me, these are some of the things that you need to know about me. And these were conversations that I ended up having with my owners and my CFOs that I reported to,
Good.
because at the end of the day, they wanted me to perform. And I know how to get the best performance out of me. I needed to teach them what that looked like. And so it was
Mm.
managing up. And then the other thing I would say is, in terms of the time, I know that's the great, what's the word? Like, that's the end all. It's like, I don't have time. And I totally get that. I totally get that. And so before we worry about carving out more time, I tell women just to start with the things that you're already doing, but do them with intention. So
Ooh.
things like eating and sleeping and moving your body. These are things that we're doing anyways that don't really take up more time. It's just we're very dismissive of them. And so the classic
Mhm.
example that I like to give is going to bed. How many times have you grudgingly gone to bed? You're at your laptop. You need to and you want to get something done. Just that last email, just that last thing up. You're just grudgingly like, you're halfway asleep, but you're going to finish it because it's important to you. We go to bed with a chip on our shoulder. We go to bed with an attitude. That is not rest. You might be sleeping, but that is not rest. That's not rest.
Ooh.
So what I tell women who are like, I don't have time. Okay. If you are going to make it so that you only, even though we should be sleeping 7 to 9 hours, but if you're going to, just be on this constant 5 or 6 hour marathon of sleep
Yes.
that you're getting for the last 10 years, can you do so with intention? Can you do so with joy? Can you do so happily? Can you lay your head at night saying, I did a good job today?
Mm.
And even if you didn't get everything done, being satisfied with what you did get done, and understanding and trusting that whatever didn't get done is not going to kill you or anybody else. Can you lay
Right.
your head down and rest?
And
Just
be at
getting quality
peace.
sleep and be at peace. And
Ah,
so sometimes that requires taking, I always say, take an extra, if you're already up, just be up. Take an extra 10 minutes, set a timer, and get it all out. Journal, write it all out. Just get it off your brain. All the things you need to do tomorrow, all the things you didn't get done today, or, whether you need to call, the things that are frustrating with you, the kids getting signed up and dropped off, all of those things that are just running around in your head. Just do a brain dump. Don't make it pretty. It's not for anybody but you, but just do that so that your mind and your heart hopefully can be at peace when you rest. Taking Switching from getting 5 to 6 hours of begrudging resistant rest is very different than getting 5 to 6 hours of peaceful rejuvenating rest. Doesn't take
I
any more time, sis, I promise you.
Right. You just said something that I love, this concept of resistant rest. Like
Yeah,
I feel like that is so many of us, and
yeah.
I used to be right there like trying to finish all the things, and I have so many friends still, and sadly black women friends, because we are
Yep,
socialized to be the super women of the earth.
yep.
We are resisting the very rest that we need
Yeah,
that would make us so much more effective at
yeah.
what we're trying to do. And it's remarkable to me how high we function even in dysregulation, even in crisis. Like it's really miraculous what we're able to
Yes.
do. But I look at my friends, my the women in my life, and I look at them from with empathy because I know what it's like, but I also want us to get this point that you're making so beautifully, Cassandra, is that we are deserving of rest. We are
Yeah,
deserving of peace. And
yeah.
I love how you said, go to bed knowing that you did a good job. You did the best that you did today. And whatever you were able to accomplish, you were able to accomplish.
We don't
So
do that.
we don't honor ourselves enough and give ourselves the space. And part of it, the other gem that you said in that answer was around knowing yourself,
Yeah,
and you gave the great advice that yes, you need to manage up, but you can't do that unless you know your own set of boundaries, you know what makes you successful. And I had to learn that the hard way. I was already into my executive career and I was still, doing some people pleasing. And after my husband died, that like shook my whole reality. And through the healing process, I decided to just flip the script and like, no, I need to take care of myself. Like having to retreat and heal taught me the power of learning to care for myself first. And
yeah.
so when I finally came back into, I was working at Meta at the time. When I finally came back in and got myself back up to functioning, that was like my best performance year yet. I was a weekend warrior in the fun sense. Like
Yes,
I was maxing out. I
yes,
was doing the full on the weekends with just
yes,
fun,
yes,
travel, dancing, going out to eat, like
yes,
just living my best life.
yes,
But then I
yes.
would come back in on Mondays and have so much clarity. I'd be so rested, and be ready to knock it out the park. And the
Yeah,
results showed. So
yeah.
I love how in your own life, you too are another example of how when you take care of yourself and when you do things with intention, how that actually accelerates your
It's
performance or your life.
100%. 100%. Everything is much more easily pursued from a place of wholeness,
Mm,
right? And I think, and to me, that's what health is. Health is wholeness. And so we can either go and chase all of the material trappings, the titles, the
yes.
salary, the companies. We can go chase all of that and get there. And then want to call ourselves successful, but then end up still striving for work life balance. We're still striving for health. We're still
Yeah.
striving to feel comfortable in our skin. So it's like, can you even
Mm.
call that success? Start with the wholeness, start with health, and then pursue the things. And all of the things come so much easier. And it's funny because when I look back on that time, we didn't call it we didn't call it personal branding then, but that's what I realized it was. That's what I was doing, and why I was being acknowledged in my career is because I was personally branding myself as someone who had discipline, someone who had
Mm,
time management skills, someone who had
yeah.
project management skills, someone who took herself and her personal standards seriously. All of these lessons that you learn by investing in yourself and leading yourself first naturally showed up in everything that I was doing. Obviously, by the physical look of me, but then also just by the energy that I possessed and was able to show up with to the world and to my team and in the work that I was doing. Um, but I always say that when everyone has advanced degrees, everyone's got an MBA these days, right? Everyone's worked
Everybody.
for the great brand, big five, Fortune 100, 500
Yeah.
companies that are here in the Bay Area. Like when everyone's done all of those things, how do you set yourself apart? Your health and your well-being. It is your
Mm.
greatest competitive advantage that no one is taking advantage of. And I
Ooh,
want women to know that when you start to practice self-care, you are practicing professional development.
100%.
Yeah.
And I love the definition you used of well-being being wholeness,
Yes.
and it made me think about spirituality. And I'd love to go back to that, for a second, because I think one of the beautiful things that you learn in spirituality is wholeness. You learn that we are innately whole. We are innately divine and beautiful and unique in all of these special ways. And I'm just curious how that even plays into your life now and the work that you're doing, how this concept, how spirituality has maybe even helped to strengthen this idea of wholeness, and even energy. Because
Mhm.
I think about too, in spirituality, you think a lot about and you learn a lot about your energy centers and how when you unburden yourself with all of the emotional, we'll say gunk, for lack of a, that's probably not in any spiritual text, but when you unburden yourself with all the emotional gunk,
Yeah.
you're no longer fracturing your energy or dividing yourself. You can come together in this wholeness and really radiate.
Yeah.
And so I know I said a lot, and there's probably a question in there, but I'd love to hear your thoughts on spirituality and wholeness and how that plays into your life.
Yeah. So, like I said, I mean, once I had that download that day in the gym, and again, that was like 12, 13 years ago, I have not been able to extract spirituality from anything. From anything. It literally is the lens through which I navigate the world, and the lens through which I interact with people, the lens through which I see people, because the
Mm.
spirituality, when you're, at least for me, really embodying it intentionally, you realize that everybody you come in contact with is embodying it as well, whether intentionally or not. They are as much a spiritual being as you are, right? And so
Yes.
I know a lot of people have their spiritual awakening, and all of a sudden it's about judgment and
Yes.
finger
I'm
wagging and
enlightened or I'm
yeah.
awakened and you're not.
Exactly, and that's not what
Mm.
the call to action is. The call to
Yeah.
action, I think, is to see everybody through that lens, and that was, I think, also, just as a sidebar, part of what I think really contributed to my ability to be empathetic leader was that, again, when we talked at the beginning of the show about seeing the humanity, seeing the person in everybody,
Yes.
that was also me being able to see their spirit and
Mm.
and recognizing that I might be talking to this big white man, named Joe, who looks like he's got it all together, but I see a spirit that's
Yes.
breaking. I
Yes.
see a spirit that's breaking, and I want to hug that spirit. Didn't hug that spirit, but um, what?
There's
But but spiritually, energetically,
yes.
just being really aware and sensitive to
Yes.
what other people are going through. And so, that was, you didn't ask this, but that was one of the ways I think my spirituality impacted my work and continues to impact my work. That when women come to me and I'm working with someone, there's all of the demographics, where are you in the world? How old are you? What's your medical, like all of the stuff, right?
Yeah.
But what I think I've allowed myself to do, and I'm doing this more and more every day, is lean into the intuitive gifts, lean into the spirituality. Like, cause
Yeah.
the God in me is seeing the God in you. That's just
Yes.
how that works. Now, am I going to allow it? Am I going to listen to it? And then I just finally
Mm.
was like, I'm going to listen to it. God is speaking to me. I hear that person's soul, that, like
Yes.
I can't ignore it
You can't
anymore.
not. Yeah.
And in deciding to accept what I was seeing and hearing from anyone that I come in contact with, that again, that changes the tone and the tenor and the texture of every interaction. It makes it a spiritual experience. I can learn from everyone. Everyone has something of value to bring. And even when I can't find the words on a, I guess, 3D human level, my heart is responding, my energy, my spirituality is responding, and I will say a prayer. I will send good energy in ways that I can't find the language for, so I
Mm.
can still be a messenger of healing, or a healer in that sense, even when I feel like my 3D self is failing me. But
Yeah.
that's when you say, the spiritual piece, I don't know how to extract it. And the way that this has shown up, for me is, if or because rather, we are the divine, we are souls having a human experience. Because of that, I have to, I want to know, well, why did my spirit choose this body? What
Yes.
did it do? How do I work this thing? Like, what does it want? What makes it tick? How do I
Yes.
optimize it? Like, I get curious about those things. And then it allows, and because I was born into a female body, into a woman's body, that means the God that I'm channeling, the God that lives in me, is the feminine. It's the
Yes.
divine feminine.
Uh,
And so when I say, I'm a goddess, I'm not just, like, hey, queen, go goddess, like, no, for real.
no, I
Like,
am a goddess. That is the energy that is emanating.
I can't help
Um,
it.
yes.
I can't help
Yes.
it. And
Uh,
so when I navigate the world, it's like, we asked ourselves in a previous life, what would Jesus do? But now for me, it's like, well, what does my goddess want? What does she want
mm,
to eat? Am I at a buffet, or if I have a menu in front of me, what is my goddess? How does this goddess eat? When it is time to rest, is my, how does my goddess rest?
uh,
It's really stepping into her shoes at every opportunity and asking her, because she's here. It's just whether or not I'm
mhm.
going to allow her to live and breathe and thrive. And so, kind of circling all the way back to one of your earlier points, for women who are busy and you don't know, where do I begin? It's like, well, allow your goddess to come through. She'll tell you.
Mm,
Don't think about it too much. Just open your heart. Like, literally open your
yes.
heart. Let your heart create desire. Because this is the other thing that I've always constantly surprised to learn, that women don't even know how to dream anymore. We don't know how to desire.
We
So
ooh.
how can you achieve anything that you're not? So if you want to be a woman, a leader, a boss, a CEO who has great energy and loves herself and worships herself and has time for self-care, allow that desire to grow in your heart. That is the
Mm,
only way you can align to it. So that's another thing. Don't worry about doing anything. Just let your heart, the desires of your heart, grow. That's your first call to action. Like, what does that look like? Who is she? And she'll, again, once you give life to her, once you acknowledge her presence, she will come forward and tell you everything you need to know. We're just so used to squashing her down and not letting
yes.
her take a breath. So I just said a whole lot there.
If you didn't just preach to the masses and wow. No, I resonated with every single syllable, and to the point that that is something that what you said about the divine goddess
Yeah.
um resonates so strongly, because that is a message that is needed for the
Yes.
collective at
Yes.
this time. And it's something that's been coming very, very strong through my downloads And I love how you were talking about when you got the download around bodybuilding. Now you can't unhear it, you can't unknow it. I was
Mhm.
just this morning before I hopped on with you, I was getting a Vedic astrology reading,
Ooh.
which was amazing. So I'll have to give
I
you her.
need to get into Vedic. That was
Oh,
literally this is a synchronicity right here that you just said that. I literally was just looking that up the other day.
yes. Well, Latoya Zavala, I'm shouting her out on the
Okay.
another jewel that I found through LinkedIn. She did a Vedic astrology reading for me and just affirmed everything that I've been remembering about myself, and even the spiritual gifts that have come online. And we've talked about in a separate conversation about the ability to channel
Yeah.
and really hear spirit distinctly
Yeah.
and have spirit speak through me. And that's something that I've been trying to hide and shy away from. But the reason I say all that is because I know, and spirit is telling me that it is time for the divine feminine to rise, and that women, the way spirit told it to me is that men and women, we all have masculine and feminine energy, but women are meant to be the embodiment of the divine feminine energy. We are the divine feminine energy in form. So
Yeah.
when you said that, I'm like, yes. And that's the work. I'm starting to build this whole body, and build, it's coming to me. So I can't take
Yes.
any credit.
Yes. No, girl, come on.
Spirit is pushing through me this work that will be called the Goddess Protocol, but it aligns exactly what you're saying, Cassandra. It's helping women to remember the goddess within, particularly desires. So,
Yes.
what came through was unlocking the divine desires
Yes.
within,
Yes.
because you're right. Like when I was denying my desires of wanting to just rest, wanting to travel, wanting freedom, wanting to be creative, I was killing myself inside.
Yeah.
But when I started to worship, I love how you said worship that goddess. Let her speak, let her
Yes.
out.
Yes.
That is our power.
Yes.
Not us leaning into our masculine and trying to go, go, go and do and focus on the external. Women are here to create. We have intuition and wisdom from
Yes.
within. We have the heart wisdom. And if we can lean into that, that is our role to be that for humanity. And if more of us can turn that on and get some of our men to lean like out of being into the toxic form of masculinity and a balance, like come back over. Like, you're doing too much. Come back into your, some of that feminine wisdom that men possess as well. Like
Yeah.
how amazing would the world be if that feminine energy came to the forefront?
We'd have world peace. I don't doubt
We'd
it.
1,000%. Like what, right?
I do not doubt it for a second.
At all. Everyone and everything would be taken care of, because it is coming from that place of compassion and heart, and not strictly from the mind. And so you also wove in through that the work that you're doing now with Ori Ara. So I want the audience to hear more about that. First of all, where does the name come from? And tell us some of the work that you get to do with the women that you're serving.
Yeah. So the name Oriara is Yoruba. And
Ah.
in the Yoruba tradition, there are three elements that you are born with: Ori, Ara, and Imi. Ori
Mm.
is purpose, Ara is body, and Imi is spirit. So I left Imi
Wow.
off and just worked with Ori and Ara, purpose and body. And what
Mm.
they're really clear about is that our body is part of our purpose. You know what I
Yes.
mean? Like that's just it's really straightforward that our body is part of our purpose. And so the name just made so much sense. It was one of those things that my whole heart chakra leapt,
Yeah.
like came out of my chest when I heard the name. I was like, that's her. That's the
Yeah.
name of my company.
Yeah.
And our goal is to help women fall in love with their bodies, fall in love with having a body, get curious about their body, begin to really embrace the fact that we have one, even if you want to just make it more simple than that, because I think a lot of women are in almost denial about their physical form,
Yes.
from a deep, deep place of hurt and from a deep, deep place of
Mhm.
pain. And I understand that. But it is the only home that you have, and it doesn't need to be an adversarial relationship.
It's not going anywhere. Like, as long as
It's
you're
not
here
going
on earth,
anywhere.
you got this body.
Exactly. And it's never about size, it's never about shape. It really is about just the embracing of whatever size and shape and beginning to honor it and treat it like a spiritual practice. And so, Oriara does work. I do work that weaves in all of the things. It weaves in the spirituality because, again, you cannot extract that from having a body. And then there's the health and well being of the body, and the health and well being of the body leading to an increased quality of life professionally and personally. So it's kind of like this journey um, through yourself that we aren't really being taught anywhere else in the world. I feel like the timing of all of this it's divine, of course. And I was going to say that I also, most of what I do through Oriara is channeled. I mean,
Mm.
yes, I've got certifications.
Yeah.
Yes, I've studied all of these things. But I mean, when I tell you that I've gone back to some of my older writings and I'm like, where did that come from? Like, that's not me. I mean, it's me, but like,
But that's not,
geez,
yeah.
that's clearly, being channeled.
Yeah.
Um, but a lot of the work that we're doing is just taking women through that journey and and giving them the tools, but first the mindset and the awareness of like what's happening and how to navigate it. The timing of this is beautiful because never before in like the history of the world has our environment, our human environment, worked against our health and our
Mm.
humanity. Never
Mm.
ever before. For as long as humans have been in existence, we have set up our environment to support and be
Yes.
self-sustaining and life-giving. And that's
Yes.
something that's not the environment that we live in today. And so it's no wonder. I want every woman to feel like it's no wonder we're confused. It's no wonder we're disembodied. It's no wonder
Mm.
this isn't easy. We're not being set up for success in any ways. And so,
No.
I feel so just profoundly honored to have come into this information and this understanding and this awareness to be able to create a space where women who want to learn can learn. So, what does it look like when you're an executive single mother? Or just an executive, young woman trying to make it and take care of yourself? Who can you go to for that information? There's not many women out there. There's a few, but there's not a lot out there who are saying, here's how this works. Here's how you take care of your mind, your body, and your spirit. Here's how you bring all of these in alignment. And yeah, it's never a matter of doing more. It's a matter of
Yes.
doing more aligned, right? And
Yes.
so it's like, how do you bring all these things together? Well, I teach workshops and I have a book and I opened up a community and mentoring for women who want to discover, how to do this for themselves. And the overall or the overarching goal for Oriara, when I created Oriara, when I was searching for a name and I was designing the look and feel of her, with a designer, what I told my graphic designer and people I was working with was, I want a space where women can introduce their daughters, the women that they mentor, to a community for them to have ongoing support. So I
Mm.
want, I have a 17-year-old daughter who still loves me very dearly and like we have a great relationship, but she wants to know how to be like her mother when she grows up. And it's like, well, this is what I do. I live Oriara. It's our way of life. It's our belief system. I want other
Ooh.
women to have daughters. Mom, like, how do I get to grow up and be like you? How do I get to worship myself? How do I get to take care of myself? And I want that mom to look to her daughter and say, let's go join Oriara, sweetheart. Like, this is where we go to do this, because where else are you going to go? And so what I'm really doing is creating an opportunity. It's not about me and my legacy. This is about the legacy of every woman who's ever had another younger woman look up to her,
Yes.
right? Because I just, like I said, we touched on before, I've had so many mentors that I only could listen to a fraction of their advice because how they got there was unhealthy, and I'm not willing to trade places with you. The advice that you gave me on navigating this fabulous career came with, 75 pounds and diabetes medication. I
Yes.
can't do that. So I can only deposit a portion of that, right? So, this is about, women understanding that this is, It's bigger than us. It's
Yes.
about the next generation. We're all elders now, whether we want to acknowledge that or not.
Right. I am
We are
firmly
all
in my auntie era, I like to say.
sure. And let's embrace that, right? But
Yes.
what are the lessons that we're passing on? Like I not many women can point to true health and well-being
Mm,
lessons that they can pass on to the next generation. And I'm prepared to do my part to make sure that stops here and now, that if you want to be a woman who has it all, because I believe that's possible, you can absolutely have it all. And it starts with your health. And if you're a woman who decides that she wants to have it all, that she's not willing to sacrifice anymore, then you've got a place to go.
mhm.
Yeah.
I love everything that Ori Ara stands for.
You.
And we are fortunate to have you here in this space and time that we are in the evolution of the world, because it's so
Yeah.
needed. And I want this. My wish for you is that this expands to every corner of the globe, because every woman and her daughter,
Thank you.
and her sisters and her mother, we
Thank
all generations of women need this. And so it's really beautiful. So thank you. I want to make sure that gets said. Thank
Yeah,
you
thank you.
for standing in your purpose so that other women can be blessed by the work that you and Ori Ara are doing. And you said something really crucial around how women are not only socialized, but how society is set up to make us very much at war with our bodies. We are very much socialized to be critical from everything. You even look at the aesthetic now, everything is about adding something or enhancing
Um,
something. And we are constantly being told directly or subversively that we are not enough, that the way we look is not enough, and we need to do something different. And we do become very disembodied, even not only from our desires, that which you so wisely pointed out, but even from our passions and even our sexuality. We are shamed even
yeah,
for that. Even
yeah,
legislation over the control or
mm,
the what
yeah,
we can do with our bodies. Like, so we're
yeah.
under assault from every single angle, and we start to, I think, internalize this and disconnect from ourselves. So, what would be one piece of advice for a woman who doesn't even enjoy the simple pleasures? She can't sit down and rest. She can't even take a sensuous shower or bath, like enjoy physical touch or being embodied. What is one wish you would have for that woman, or a place that you suggest she start to get reconnected with her body?
That is such a good question. I don't think I've been asked that question
Mm,
before. You I find that curiosity is a cure.
mm,
Honestly,
yeah.
curiosity is a cure. And I say that because I remember when I feel like I discovered I had a body that day in the gym. You would think, I always say, you would think having a baby would be like, oh my gosh, I created this amazing
Yes.
little, that wasn't it for me. It was bodybuilding that woke me up to my body. But I think when that happened, though, I just was like, whoa, I have a body. Again, what does it do? How does it work? Like, I just got curious. I just got curious. And when you begin to ask yourself questions and you get curious, it opens up the neural pathways in your brain to go in search of answers. Both, and we could take this on a biological, scientific level, or on a spiritual, level, because biologically, yeah, the neural pathways in our brain open up and they go in search of answers, and they start making connections with other neural pathways in your brain. And you arrive at
Yes.
answers that you wouldn't have otherwise arrived at. But then it's also just planting a seed in the quantum universe, right? And you plant that seed and it begins to sprout. It grows roots. And before you know it, you might not notice because it's growing slowly because we're not fertilizing it, but it's still growing and it will break surface. It will show itself,
Yes.
once those roots have gotten going. And so, to answer your question, I think it's just developing a curiosity. You don't have to have answers. You don't have to have a desire, even. It's really, okay, I have a body. How does it work? I have a body. How does this thing supposed to operate? Like, how do I optimize it? How do I make it stop hurting? How do I,
Yes.
just asking questions, just asking questions. I think if you can at least develop a curiosity, you're halfway, if not more than halfway to being cured.
Thank you for that. I want to recognize that there is a lot of people that would have given an answer like, this is the way, or this is what I do. But I think we forget to empower people just to be curious. And
Yeah.
that's just another way how we can retrain ourselves to be okay with not knowing, be okay with, not being perfect, and even be okay. Sometimes when we start to ask questions and get curious, we can get into the judgment of ourselves, or why didn't I know? Or this
Yeah.
person didn't tell me, or this person shamed me and made me feel like I was fat when I was 5. And like, let's let that go because we got to recognize that people are all going on their own spiritual journey. And
Yeah.
so, and everything is ultimately for our highest good, and come back to yourself.
Yeah.
Just be curious without judgment. So I
Yeah.
love that. Be curious of how this
Yeah.
body works.
But you just said something like this is a conversation though for women do want who do want to heal, because sometimes
Mhm.
pointing outside of ourselves, it's so much easier. It's easier to blame the person who called you fat when you were 5. It
Exactly.
just is, and you
Yes.
stay there, like, just the rest of your life, that is the thing. I actually just realized, literally, so just this weekend, or I'm sorry, last week, I went to a woman's retreat in Southern California that was fabulous, and they had a professional photographer there. Now, you stick an iPhone in front of my face, I could take pictures all day long, but a professional camera, it gives me the shakes and the shivers, because when I was a kid, my I went to this modeling open call thing, and they said, "Oh, she's great, but she's not a natural behind the camera. We're going to need to teach her how
Mm.
to." And I didn't realize until I got in front of this professional. I'm like, what? What is wrong with me? And I was like, that thought came back. You're not a natural in front of the camera. This has been like 30 years. Something silly, but I'm just like, but that was, I realized that that tape was there. So now I'm working on uprooting that. But the other option could have been, yeah, I know, I'm not made for this. Like that,
Mhm.
I could have fallen back into that stereotype or that story so
Yes.
easily, but
Yes.
it's the desire that I have. And so I guess all of that was to say that, it is that simple. It is that simple about getting curious and turning to yourself to look for answers, but be willing to lead yourself, I guess. Maybe that's a better
Mhm.
way of saying. Be willing to lead yourself as opposed to looking for someone else to lead you. Trust yourself.
Ooh.
Have belief in yourself. Have faith in yourself. Like when you turn back inwards, and I'm always going to direct you back inwards. If you decide,
Yes.
if you hear anything that I say and you like it, just understand any conversation is going to be about me turning you back to
Yes.
yourself.
Check in with
Um,
yourself.
yeah, but be willing to trust what you learn about yourself and hear from yourself, So I think, yeah, I just wanted to kind of capstone that because it really does. You have to want to believe yourself.
You do. And we're taught that's another thing. It kind of goes in tandem, especially I think for women as well, living in kind of a kind of living in a patriarchal society. There is no kind of it. It is a
100%.
patriarchal society. We are taught to look to someone else, a father figure, if you will, whether that be your religion, your
Yep.
boss, your partner, your someone outside of ourselves to validate or tell us the way to go. And that's one of the beautiful gifts that I found in spirituality, and I hear very clearly in you as well, is sovereignty, like you being
Yes.
your own highest authority.
The word.
Yeah, and I just really began to understand, the concept of sovereignty, and trusting myself and trusting my inner wisdom and guidance, and yeah, not getting stuck in these story loops and looking for answers elsewhere, just really sitting with myself, which isn't easy and isn't always fun, can be painful,
Yeah.
but it is so worth it to
Yeah.
be able to have that confidence to know that you can lead yourself out of it. I love how you put that.
Yeah. 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 Good. I'm glad.
Yes, juicy, juicy, juicy. Okay, we are winding down because we could be talking all day, but just and in this conversation, the folks listening and watching will be able to hear all of this, all the things that you've been through, the ups and downs. You have gone through so much, so many trials, so many triumphs, but yet you still maintain your joy. And that was something that was striking to me. I think now I'm in a place and in a vibration that I am looking for people that have that frequency. And you are absolutely one of those people. And I would love for you to share what advice you would have for other people to maintain their bliss,
Mm.
especially, right? Because things seem like they are coming off the rails. It is out of control in the
Yeah.
world. How do you
Yes.
maintain your bliss despite the
Yes.
circumstances?
Yeah, the world is weird, and to say the least.
To say the least.
You know, I really, and this might sound, I don't know, it's how it sounds, but I draw a lot of comfort and a lot of inspiration in knowing that I'm a co-creator, in knowing that, not thinking, not just believing, but knowing that comforts me. And so as the world continues to get weird, I recognize the fact that your bliss, my bliss, my joy is predicated on what energies I'm I'm embodying, I'm allowing, that I'm digesting. Like, it's all
Mm,
about the energies that I'm exposed, not just even exposing myself to, because I can expose myself to those energies, but it's more so about um
you don't have to
uh,
consume them.
you
Like,
don't have to, yeah, you can
yeah,
observe.
yeah.
And there's a saying, and I can't think of what it's called, right, but it's like a quote, like, you can observe but not absorb. That's what it is. Observe but not
Mm-mm.
absorb.
I
That's what I would.
love that. I love
And
that.
so, yeah, and so it's observe and not absorb. And I find a lot of power in observing, because I want to learn, I want to understand what's going on, but I don't need to absorb in order
Mm,
to be a good person. I don't need to absorb in order
mhm.
to somehow be empathetic enough. Like, that's not what's required of you. And
Yes.
so I find a lot of comfort in knowing that that's not required of me, and that I get to say, yes, we've got political figures, and we've got international, aspects, and we've got so much going on that feels outside of our control, because it is. But my world is my world, and who do I want to be in it? That's
Mm,
all I really focus on. I don't focus on what they're doing in
yes.
their world, even if their world collides with mine. When the collision happens, who do I want to be in that? And I'm just really indexed, like really focused on who do I want to show up as at any given moment. It's another opportunity for the divine feminine to show up,
Yes.
it's in these moments. And I just, I love knowing that. Like, I feel, I won't say like indestructible or anything, but I feel very, very confident um about my life, and the fact that I'm creating it as I go. And so
Mhm.
it's being present in every moment, and deciding in that moment, what does my goddess want? And and you move on to the next moment, and then it's a question again, what does my goddess want? And I kind of just stay in that vein. And so far so good.
Oh my gosh. I just need to double click on a few because you just, wow. First of all, what does my goddess want? I am going to have to quote you, Cassandra.
Yeah.
I want
Yes.
every
Yes.
woman under the sound of our voices
Yeah. Yeah.
to always be thinking, what does my goddess want? And the co-creation aspect is brilliant,
Yeah.
brilliant life advice because we are more powerful than we know and that we allow ourselves to be. And I'm similar to you in that I've had to learn that detachment of I used to be very wrapped into the political like sphere and all of the things and all the drama and get sucked into the algorithm.
Yep.
And now I just look at it and roll my eyes and say, child, please, I'm about to
Yeah.
go water these plants
Come on. Come on.
and embody what the world needs. And
Thank
what
you.
spirit has said to
Yes.
me is be the
Yes.
light. Be
Yes.
the light in all
Yes.
situations.
Yes.
And so we don't have to absorb the darkness and get in the muck and do the thing. We can just be the light because darkness scatters and light
Yeah.
And so
I love
I
that.
I yeah, I just thank
Love
you.
that.
I love you for bringing that point forward to us, to just there's so much power in co-creating our reality and being in a place of energy of what's needed, not feeding into what is not, what more of
100
what we don't want. So,
100% love that. I'm going to carry that with me. Be the light. Be the
uh,
light. Because as you were talking, I'm like, the light stands out so much brighter in the
yes.
darkness, right? Like
Yes.
your time, actually. When the sun is out, the stars are still there, but you can't see them.
Can't see
It's
him.
not until the sun goes down that the stars shine the brightest. That's in the darkness. And I think, yeah, that's beautiful. That's
Mm,
beautiful.
mm.
100%.
So, uh, friend, where can people continue to be inspired and lean into their inner goddess? Where can they get in touch with you and Ori Ara? Because I know after hearing this, you're going to have everybody wanting to jump in your DMs on your line.
Yes, I would love that. Please come one, come all. So Oriara, my website, oriara.com, oriara.com. You can find everything from my blogs. I've got a blog called The Body Ministry about health and wellness. I've got a blog called
Ooh,
Holistic Hustle, which is for our women in corporate trying to find a holistic way to manage their hustle, right?
yes.
Balancing ambition and well-being. I've got my monthly workshops. Some are donation based because I feel very strongly about keeping self care accessible, but some are also
Yes.
fee based. I've got my book that was launched last month, The Body Ministry. So the blog was made into a book. Thank you very much. And so that was published last month. And then I've just launched this month my community, the Self Care Collective, which is again that space that I've created for women to learn about what it looks like, and then again have a place to refer their daughters and their mentees and all the young women in their life that look up to them, to have this reoccurring space for wellness and self-care. But yeah, all of that is on my website, oriara.com. So please get on board, join the newsletter. Is the easiest way to stay abreast of all of the different things that I'm doing.
Yes, and I'm on the newsletter and I get your beautiful messages. So,
Oh, that's nice.
yes, yes, girl. Like I'm just, I very much so. I'm very inspired by you and I'm grateful. I'm so grateful for you standing in your goddess so that I can stand in my goddess
Yes.
and other women listening can find and connect with their inner goddess.
I really hope so. Yes. And may I
Mhm.
say just one last thing before we
Please.
depart? So I like to leave women with this thought, which is when you have a calling on your life, you must protect it with your health. That's like what I like to make sure women know, because we
Ooh.
often are out here running around talking about, I die for my kids, I die for
Right.
my clients, I die for this. And it's like, sis, nobody is asking you to do all of that.
Mm-mm, no.
Can you be healthy for them?
Yes.
That's the call to action. And so, let that fill your heart, your mind, your spirit, and that whether your calling is as a wife, a mother, a best friend, a daughter, a pet mom, whatever, we all have a calling, right? Whatever yours is, the only request is that you do it healthy.
Mm,
No one's asking you to no one asking you to die.
right.
So just keep that in mind.
Protect it with your health.
Yes.
Protect it with your health. Mm,
Yes.
what a beautiful way to end. Thank you so much.
You.
Thanks, everyone.